Can you explain why didn't you fire him for cause, which wouldn't have required you to pay anything?
Well, so I think that there's still a legal matter pending. I think that this was in the best interest of the district because our legal team that was part of this and the PPST legal team determined that this would be one, less costly for the district because he does have standing. And the second one was that we needed to move forward, right? This is, it was a big distraction for the work. And I think at the end of the day, this was a better decision for the district financially.
So you had these clauses in the contract. Did you consider exercising one of those clauses to fire him for cause?
We did consider it, but upon the recommendation of my legal team, this was the best recourse.
You said on Monday night, you found out about the Florida allegations against Dr. Alege in news reports after he was hired. You called Harrison in, you asked him about it. You found out that he knew about this before hiring him. You didn't ask him to resign then or discipline him then. Do you wish you had done things differently last year?
So I think, let me clarify. When I found out, I brought him in, I had a discussion with him. Do I wish, you know, hindsight is always 20/20, right? But I think he was disciplined because he did not tell me. So he took that ability for me, and Yinka was already working in the district. Dr. Alege was already working in the district. So from that moment on, I did not participate in the senior hires, but from that moment on, I did. So I started, you know, I had a tighter rein of what was happening in terms of the senior hires. But yeah, you know, it's very disappointing. I was relying on Harrison to do the right thing. And here we are. So I think that that's when I realized that I needed to be more involved in what was happening. Remember, I oversee the district. I don't run the day-to-day of the district.
Right, you hired Mr. Peters to run the day-to-day.
Correct.
And now, are you intending to review any other of his, whether it be hiring decisions or other staffing decisions, considering that there's consensus that he made an error in judgment in this case? What sort of review will we see about his other decisions?
That's already begun. So we have already started pulling files, looking at hires. So that has already taken place. So we started this on yesterday.
And who specifically is doing the review? It's happening internally?
It's happening internally first. I think doing a really extensive review, and because there's a number of hires, right? So which hires, we're looking at all the level of the hires. So we've already started that with HR as we move forward.
Is there anything specific that concerns you at this point? Any other decisions that he made, or hiring or staffing decisions that he made that you're looking back on that you're concerned about?
Not at this point. We're at the beginning of that process, so I really can't say much more about that.
Who is in charge of the district today?
I am.
And do you intend, what's your plan? Are you going to name an interim superintendent and then start a search, and will it be a national search again?
So we are going to have an interim superintendent. We're in the process of finding that person. And then there will be a search. The search will include national and local. Everybody will be part of that search. And there will be a committee that will elevate some of the names to me. And some other, the governor wants to be very involved. I think that there will be a process in place that will be ready to make public, hopefully in a week or so.
What is the governor said? Does he, because obviously, listen, we have a different governor now than the last time you searched for a superintendent. Did he have any specifics about how he wants to see the search conducted, or the timeline that he wants to see the new person hired by?
So I think the timeline we discussed and is really by the end of the summer. We want an expedited timeline so that there is an opportunity for that person to be here at the beginning of the school year. But we also want to keep the interim in place so that there's kind of a support and continuity. You know, the beginning of the school year is always a tough time. And in the last 2 years, we've had a very successful school opening, and we want to keep that trend in place.
For the interim superintendent, are you anticipating naming someone already within PPSD or someone else outside of that?
We're not there yet. We're not there
Okay.
yet. We will be hopefully by the end of the week, but we're not there right now.
You think you'll name an interim by the end of the week?
Well, at least have a name by the end of the week.
Okay, got it. And then you'll do a search for the permanent superintendent. Last time around, I recall that you didn't release, the names of the finalists publicly. It was a little bit different from searches for superintendents we've seen previously when, the 5 or 3 finalists were named, their resumes were released, the public got a little bit of a chance to see who they were. Do you want to change that process this time around and have it be a little bit more public?
I think that it will be. I think it will be because I think that there is a need to rebuild trust. I wholeheartedly believe that. And since the moment that I've come into Rhode Island, trust is a big deal for me. I've tried to build that trust, and I think that it only makes sense as we start healing in this situation that it be a more transparent process.
How do you think you get that trust back from, the families and the folks in Providence who were disappointed in what happened with Superintendent Peters? How do you gain their trust back?
By delivering on our promise. I think the part that we're forgetting to talk about is where PPSD was, where it is today. There has been real progress that has happened. We have a curriculum. I think we underestimate how important that is for our K-8. We have closed the gap. We had 100 vacancies and we were down to 20. We created an office that's responsive to the community, that have benchmarks. We have met all the benchmarks. We have extended our dual language program to middle school. We're going to have the first IB school in Providence. We're looking at innovating in the high schools, that we're expanding our CTE programs. There's a lot of work that has been done. And I speak to the parents. I make it a point to speak to the parents who see and feel the change. We have a long way to go, but that work has happened. And that's how you gain trust, is by delivering on your word and really moving the agenda forward, because this is about improving the systems and structures and the delivery of what we are providing to our kids in Providence.
Mayor Lorza last week had a news conference where he basically said the state should reform the teacher's contract and then give the schools back to the city. He all but said that the state takeover isn't working. What do you say to that? I presume you disagree, because I saw in your letter to families that you said you're still committed to the intervention and to the turnaround. So why is Mayor Lorza wrong?
I didn't say he was wrong. You did.
But I'm asking you, tell me why he's incorrect, that the school should be given back.
Because I don't know what measure he's using. I'm using what's happening in the classrooms. I'm using how kids are impacted. I'm using that this is the first year that all teachers came to parent-teacher conference. I'm using that we are seeing some preliminary data. That's what I'm using. I'm using that we went from 1 day of PD to 5. I'm using real tangible measures that the community said was important to them. I'm looking at how many teachers of color we hired. We put in a benchmark. How many new educators we were going to hire. We put in a benchmark and we exceeded that. So I'm looking at numbers. I'm not quite sure what he's looking at, but I can only look at the things that we said we were going to do. And more has been done in this last year during a pandemic. Let's not forget that we're one of the few urban districts that opened during a pandemic. So those are the measures that I'm using. I don't know what he's using it, but I think we disagree in that.
Yeah, his main measurement was that the teacher's contract has not been changed. So the negotiations are ongoing, is my understanding?
So the negotiations are ongoing. The negotiations are difficult. I think I've said this very beginning, change is difficult. I think that the challenge is, I don't know, he might be saying that, but my understanding is that he negotiated for 2 years. And prior to that, the last negotiation took 2 years. And I have been at every negotiation, and my staff has been there. We have been there. And that's very different than what's happened in the past. So I think that it's not easy. It's not easy. I think that the things that we need to change the district are difficult. And I think that it's very hard when you're having a conversation that only half of it is being portrayed and on Twitter. Let's not look at Twitter. If that's where we're getting our news from, then I worry about us.
The next negotiating session is Thursday. Are you still doing the twice weekly? And there, are you willing to take this to court if there's no contract in place, let's say, by the start of the new school year?
I would hope that we could get to a deal. I have to do what's right by the kids and the families. And at the end of the day, the teachers, like, we all want to be successful. And I think this is what we want to do. I think what's hard about negotiating is that I can't talk about the things that I want and how it's going to benefit the district and everybody involved, which puts me at a disadvantage. I don't know, to be honest with you, Steph, we are moving and talking and continuing to have talks, but I think that there are places that we are stuck on. And I am pretty clear that we need some of these things. So hopefully we can move forward. I don't have, I can't say for certain before the school year, this or that. I know that we have put more money on the table than ever has been offered to teachers in Providence. And I need people to hear that, because I don't want people to think that we're trying to shortchange teachers. That is not what is happening here. Not.
And briefly, you mentioned earlier something about a committee when it comes to hiring the new superintendent. Who would be on that committee?
So I think my commitment has always been to the community, right? And the parents and the students. And, I think that it'll be a pretty diverse. It'll have a couple of layers. And the people that have a stake in this, right? So I think that that's important. So we will be moving forward, and we will have more information that we can share in the next couple of days.
Okay. And in terms of your future, your intention is to stay in Rhode Island and see the turnaround through for the 5-year term, assuming that the governor and the next governor want you to remain in their cabinet?
So yes. I made a commitment to the students and the families, and I intend to honor that commitment. And I think at the end of the day, I am more than just overseeing Providence, right? I oversee the entire state. And we have had some pretty fabulous wins. This has been a hard year. Everybody's tired, but we opened up schools. We actually had higher participation in advanced coursework this year. We have had so many wins as a state that I think it's important that we remember that. I think what I've learned about Rhode Island is that we hone in on certain parts of the work that we're doing, but we really need to look at the big picture. And this is a state initiative, so I don't intend to go anywhere. I would hope that whoever comes in would want to continue the work. I heard that there was a commitment from everyone in Rhode Island to improve the Providence school system. So I am, as long as that commitment is there, I will be here.